And the more they depend on the technology and not looking into the heart of people, the more criminals they will raise. And that's the madness. The madness, complete madness. Well, we have been subject to this, can you imagine? We have fallen into this trap. And we have thought of ourselves as not being educated. And we have to acquire this knowledge in order to catch up with them in their madness. What would you say if you find people following a schizophrenic, saying, teachers, teachers? What would you say about those people? They are worse than the schizophrenic. The schizophrenic is just cuckoo. But people running after him to say, teachers, teachers. What has happened to them? So this is the world of rationale. But this is not the subject I want to talk to you about. Not language, not thinking. I told you I want to talk to you about our times and what is our role in this time. Islam was for 1400 years Dar al-Islam. Rule since the days of Medina by Caliphate. That was the order and continues to be. One nation. We went through ups and downs. The cyclical way of history, as Ibn Khaldun put it. The peak of our history, and world history for that matter, is Madina al Munawwara. At the time of the death of Rasul, when he said, and today I have completed Medina. That was the peak of human history. From then we will never reach it again. It was never reached any time earlier, and it will never come back again. So we are in a slow process of going down. But it's not just like this. It goes like this. So you have peaks and lows. The Umayyads, the Abbasids, Al-Andalus, the Ottomans, up, down, up, down, up, down. What is extraordinary about our time is that this is a time where there is no Caliph in the world. Dar al-Islam has disappeared, and that is new. You want bidah? You know, the South is like bidah. Well, this is a bidah. It's a huge bidah. And it's a bidah by which, and the reason why, the British put them there, to guarantee that the Caliphate will never arrive again. Of course, that is impossible. But the Saudis are there to make sure it doesn't happen. They fought against the Caliphate. They are the enemies of the Caliphate. Therefore, they are our enemies. That country will have to go. So our time, defined by this critical event, which is the fall of the Caliphate, then this is a process of almost the 20th century, from 1920 to our days. So not yet 100 years. And what happened in this time? Well, what we had is a society where everything was in place. Before, during the Caliphate, there was a political elite around the Caliphate, governance, the Sharia was in place, with ups and downs, and failures in many aspects. But still, there was no doubt about the fact that the sovereignty belonged to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and through the following of the Quran, the legitimacy of the Caliphate was granted. He was a servant of Allah. The conditions is he must be accessible to people, and he cannot tax the people. And this is very important. One of the Sahaba came to Umar ibn Khattab, and Umar ibn Khattab asked him, he asked him, am I an emir or a Caesar? Umar ibn Khattab asked, an emir or a Caesar? No, you are an emir for two reasons. Because you are accessible to people, and because you do not tax people. Extraordinary. Extraordinary. So he didn't put himself into a huge palace in the hill with guards to make sure that nobody has access to him. And he did not tax people like the Caesars do. Wow, very interesting lesson, isn't it? So this was the days, and then you know what followed. First World War, we lost the war. There is a breaking down. The lands of Islam are divided by the colonial powers. You know, this little bit for you, this little bit for me, and that one, well, we share, and blah, blah, blah. A colonial powers come in, the imposition of a different legal code. And then you find our ulama is still there. But the head had been removed. Now, these people, they taught the law, and they were teaching the law. But suddenly, the people that they would be appealing to implement what they knew, had disappeared. Instead, they have a British guy, or a French guy, who is coming with a complete different set of codes. A constitution. A constitution that they say, this is higher than the Quran. The Quran is good for your, family affairs. But the constitution will rule society. This is what turned to be later on into Sharia courts and real courts. Comes from this madness. And so our people were pushed aside. They could not be eliminated, but still society played allegiance to them. And during this time appears the first modernist against, in this background, a group of traitors, absolute, complete traitors. Most of them liaised to free Masonic societies. And please, when you hear free Masonic society, don't jump into conspiracy theories. It's something much more present. You don't have the luxury of talking about conspiracy. Freemasonry is your constitution, your paper money, the dollar, the 80% of the values that you live in. They are free Masonic humanistic values. They won. So you don't have to look into secret societies, of course they exist. But you want to look into Freemasonry, so look at your constitution as the first step. Constitutionalism, in the early part of the 20th century, was synonymous of anti-Caliphate. All the forces that were against the Caliphate, they were all constitutionalist. Constitutionalism is anti-Islam. Check it out. So when they won, of course, constitution came into place. Now this group, this constitutionalist group, this humanistic, some among them, they said, no, and this is pure Freemasonic way of thinking. That there's the taking of humanistic values, and then God becomes one of them. So you have democracy, you have this, and you have Allah, you know, in the repertoire. God becomes another value, a value. So they have no hesitation to say, I am an Islamic Freemason or Islamic humanist. You know, within this frame. So therefore you can speak about Islamic democracy, Islamic economics, Islamic feminism, Islamic blah blah blah. You can adopt every single methodology or problem that the West has acquired, and they just put Islamic beside it. And you are happy as pie. You have no sweat of hesitation. But the moment you do that, you have degraded thinking, you have stopped thinking. And you cannot understand Allah any longer. That's what the Sufis would call hidden shirk. He will say the right thing, but he doesn't understand what he's saying. So this group, they started, you know, Islam is an adjective to bring the stuff. What is the stuff? The European values, which clearly are superior to us. Modernism, Islamic modernism. Al-Afghani, Mohammed Abdu, Rashid Reda, Hassan al-Banna, Maududi in Jamaat al-Islamiyya. These three and those who followed up until today. These people come in and they say, we have, our task is reform. Jamaluddin al-Afghani puts it absolutely clearly. He said, I am the Luther of Islam. I am the Luther, meaning the Luther, the Protestant. And what Protestantism brought to Christianity? Brought to Christianity two things. Making riba halal, so the Christian banks, and transforming morality in a personal affair, totally centered upon woman, sexuality and woman, the covering of woman in particular. And that becomes the obsessive affair. Personal morality overtakes social morality. Social morality disappears. You have no social responsibility. So the Jama'ah is broken. You have morality just as on your own. And these tiny little details are highlighted. All that is the Puritanism. So, Al-Afghani, I am the Luther of Islam. And they take a reform. Because what they say is, you see, we have to take the West, but we have to transform it according to Islamic values. Islamization. And that sounds good, no? Because it says, oh, well, yeah, no, I understand that. But that's not what they do. They don't change, let's say, for example, capitalism and you know, filter it into Islamic values. No, what they do is that they make the Sharia compliant to capitalism. It's a reform of the Sharia. What these people do is that, well, Islam has to be reformed. It is extraordinary. That's why when these people come and open their mouth in Egypt at the time when Sheikh Ilis is there. Sheikh Ilis was an old gentleman. He was the head of Al-Azhar. You know? And we have his fatwas, we have lots about him because he was a great scholar, a Maliki scholar. And Muhammad Abdul, one of the times, came to Al-Azhar. He was the chief mufti, made by Lord Cromer. Lord Cromer made him the mufti, for God's sake. I mean, don't you get the picture? It's like Margaret Thatcher appointing me as the mufti of this. I have to be evil, by definition. Anyway, so he comes to Al-Azhar, into the canteen and in the coffee shop, and then the Sheikh Ilis was there, and he sees them coming. And he was an old gentleman, and the description is like he lifted himself up with his stick and raised up, and he went to him and he hit it with the head, in the head, and said, "You kafir, get out of here." because it was clear to them that this is kufr. Now, what happened is that these people, through the intermediation of and the encouragement of the West, you are the Mufti, and here is Dar al-Manar, the first pan-Islamic magazine allowed by Rashid Reda. So the magazine goes to Indonesia, goes to everywhere. You have a Mohammedia movement here. People think Muhammad Rasulullah. No, Muhammad Abdul Muhammadiyah. Okay? And these people say, we are not ulama, we are ustads. And then you don't have alim anymore. They have ustad this, ustad that, ustad that. Where have you found all that? Everywhere here. Ustad is the stamp of you are a modernist. They wanted to differentiate. And you know what ustad is? Ustad is not an Arabic word. It's a Persian word. This word was used to describe, and it became fashionable to be used as description of musicians, artisans. Within the guild was called the Ustad. Within the Mason Guild was called Ustad. Within the Freemason organization it was called Ustad. Ustad means master. So these guys, they say, the master. And then I think Rashid writes the book. Yeah, Rashid writes the book. Muhammad Abdul, the first Ustad. Ustad al-Awal. And still you don't get it? Still you don't get it? They are declaring chains of teachers that go back to these guys. They didn't want to call themselves alim. They wanted to differentiate themselves. And they did, indeed. They achieved it. And what happened with the traditional Islam then? The pondoks, the traditional ulama, they disappeared. They let them die. They pushed them aside and they let them die. And then you find a complete different paradigm during the 20th century. The traditional ulama slightly die out. By the 50s, the 60s, there are very few left. And this, the rising of these lunatics coming into power, who now then, by contrast, what they have to face is a secular government. So then you have modernist versus secular. And of course, if you are a Muslim, you have to say, well, I'd rather have the modernist than the person who declares, no Islam, religion is bad. So these modernists become now the orthodoxy of Islam. But you see what happened here? Those who had been kafir before, now they are the orthodoxy. And what are the theses? The thesis is rationalism, humanism, rational foundations upon which we declare what is right and wrong. Rational foundations to determine the truth. So they speak about Islamic democracy and they don't even think for a second. The madness that they are talking about, the kufr that they are bringing forward, they do not know. Because now I feel like Sheikh Elish. I will take my baton and hit him in the head. I have to calm down for a second.